And just a quick note, we had a little trouble with the audio on this episode, so forgive me that it's not the usual quality, but I promise that the content is still great. What is a semi-elective cesarean? Well, you will learn that in today's birth story episode that is being brought to you by Ellement Prenatal Supplements. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hey, real quick, before we get into this episode, my new and improved online birth course, the Birth with Power Pathway, is coming in May. If you want to feel calm, confident, and actually prepared for your hospital birth, this is for you. The best way to be the first to know when it drops, join my email list at drnicolerankins.com/email. Well, hello there. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 169. Thank you for being here with me today. In today's episode of the podcast, we have a fantastic birth story from Meghan. Meghan is an urban planning consultant. She is based in Texas, and she gave birth to her first child back in November 2021. She's going to share that story with us today. We're going to chat about how she decided to have a semi-elective gentle C-section, and you'll hear exactly what that means in the episode. And she did that because of a history of past trauma. And she also did it with an incredible all-woman hospital team. That was really, really important to her to have all female providers. We're also going to talk about how she decided to have an amniocentesis in her second trimester, what that experience was like for her. But then overall, how she had just a really positive birth and postpartum experience. Overall, things just went really, really well. So there is so much delightful information in this episode about being empowered, about using your choice, and I know that you are going to find it helpful. Now, speaking of empowered, I have a resource beyond this podcast to really help you be empowered with the information you need, both during your pregnancy and birth. It's called the Inner Circle membership. It's a monthly membership where you get access to bonus podcast episodes. You get all 100 and now nearly 70 episodes of this podcast organized in a way so you can go through it that's really useful for you. You get access to live classes taught once a month by me, also live office hours where you can ask me anything about pregnancy and birth. And then you get access to a private Facebook group community, supportive, judgment-free community. That's just really, really great as you go through your pregnancy and birth. It's a great next step after the podcast. Right now, the Inner Circle is closed, but I'm going to open it back up sooner than I thought. So if you head to my email list, drnicolerankins.com/email, hop on my email list and you'll be the first to know when the Inner Circle membership opens up again. Now, before we get into the episode, let me just talk for a quick moment about prenatal vitamins and prenatal supplements. We always recommend prenatal vitamins. It's important that you start taking them ideally at least 3 months before you get pregnant. But as we all know, there's like 11 different types of prenatal vitamins and supplements out there, and it can be so confusing to decide which one is right for you. And so that's why I have been really excited to talk about the podcast sponsor that we have right now, Ellement. They have created the first ever personalized prenatal supplement. It takes the stress out of the process. It's a twice daily packet. It was actually designed by physicians, by maternal fetal medicine specialists. And the supplement is customized not only for each person, but it changes over time depending on where you are in your pregnancy. I think that is super duper cool. So every pregnancy is unique. Your prenatal should be too. So visit helloelement.com. That's Ellement with 2 L's, ELLEMENT.com, and join the wait list today. All right, let's get into this great birth story episode with Meghan. so much, Meghan, for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I am excited to have you come on and share your story. It's a little bit different than what we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited to share it because it is a little different.
Absolutely. So why don't you start off by telling us a bit about yourself and your family?
I'm an urban planning consultant, so I work on city problems kind of across the United States, and my husband is in residential construction. He's mostly a carpenter, everything from furniture to remodels, and we live in San Antonio, Texas. We had lived in Austin for 8 years before that, and then we're both, I'm from Missouri and he's from Tennessee.
Gotcha. And Austin is a great city, so I hear. I don't know as much about San Antonio. How do you like it?
I adored Austin. We left to get into the housing market. The classic story. San Antonio's been an adjustment. It's quite a bit more conservative, which has been a struggle. But we're back in Austin a lot. We're close, and we're just kind of in flux right now, trying to figure out our next move.
Gotcha. All right. So let's go ahead and hop into your story. Why don't we start off by having you tell us a bit about your pregnancy and your prenatal care? Who did you see for your pregnancy, and what was your prenatal care like?
Sure. So I saw an OBGYN group of 4 women. They were actually the second office that I was with. I switched early, like at 8 weeks.
What made you switch?
Yeah, I was just fully adamant that I wanted a woman running the show for the birth. And there were men in the practice, so I looked specifically for a woman-only practice, and I found 4 women. They actually deliver at the Downtown Children's Hospital, and I felt very great there immediately. A lot of evidence-based stuff. It kind of felt like women just doing what they wanted and what they thought was best as doctors the whole time, which I just felt really secure with.
Oh, that's really nice. And is there any particular reason why you wanted only women providers?
I've seen enough. Just like I'm good.
Yeah, gotcha.
Just gut feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And there's no, that's a reason enough. I know I personally prefer female providers as well, just because, I don't know, it just makes me feel more comfortable. So, did you have any problems or issues during your pregnancy at all?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about a genetic scare that we had.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I will say first off, I was incredibly nauseous for the first trimester, really difficult to work. And then probably still pretty nauseous through the entire pregnancy. So that was something that was really hard to deal with, and probably my most pressing day-to-day symptom. But other than that, so we had the NIPT test, the maternity 21 at about 12 or 13 weeks, and that was normal and fine. So we kind of, let that go. And I live in Texas, so this is, a pressing issue to think about for women. And so we kind of let that piece go. And then at about 18 weeks, we had our anatomy scan, and they found a few soft markers of possible genetic issues. So they found an EIF in his heart, which is a little calcium deposit, and then his kidneys were mildly dilated. And so we were referred to maternal fetal medicine. Again, a wonderful woman provider. I'm happy to recommend these women to anyone in San Antonio if they'd like to contact me. And then we decided to do an amnio, just being, we're pro-choice. We wanted to put our best genes forward.
Right.
We're probably only having one child. And so we just felt pretty strongly about that. So we went ahead with the amnio, and the amnio was actually simple, easy. I had no symptoms, and then we got all of our results back, and the baby's totally fine. So it was interesting in that, I did feel somewhat like soft markers felt like a bit of a gray area from what they were telling me. They weren't like, this means anything or this doesn't mean anything. He was growing really well, hands opening, things like that. But also we just are kind of I didn't want to wonder. I didn't want to spend any time after birth, looking at him weird or trying to figure out things like that. And I will say, I feel like, amnios, especially when they're done in maternal fetal medicine, and, they've, I guess, been being done for a while. The risk is just so low. I just feel like that's what I communicate to my girlfriends now. Like, is like, I would just do an amnio. Like, it didn't feel, if that's really important to you, it didn't feel as scary and such as it was like in my mom's generation. And statistically, that's not the case as well.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. I had an amnio for my first one because she had this intestinal malformation, and obviously neither one of us can speak for what every single person will feel, but it really is pretty simple. It's just like a needle, and it's just like bloop, and it's pretty quick and easy.
Yeah. It was. And I, first time mom, I was very scared. So I made my husband take off work for a few days, and that was completely unnecessary. Like, just relax. It was fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad everything turned out well, but you're right. There are some very serious implications for if, God forbid somebody has something that's a problem with the pregnancy, and the limitations on their choices of what they can do about it is a very serious concern right now.
Absolutely. And I mean, we had at that point, like, we had identified a place in New Mexico, and had called them just to say, hey, we don't know, but like, we want to know we're in good hands.
Right.
If we have to do this. And, I mean, my doctors were just incredible. I don't want to they were just really incredible people as far as letting me know my options within the bounds of like what we could do, what Texas allows them to do.
Right.
And so, I did feel very cared for throughout the entire process, even if the procedures available to my doctors in Texas are limited.
That's great that you felt cared for, and you felt like you had all of the options, that you knew about all of the options. And, it sounds like you were in a place that if you needed to, you had the resources where you could take advantage of some of those options, but not everyone has that, unfortunately.
And that's why I think just donations to abortion funds in these states are just, I think that's the best way to get money into the hands of women.
I co-sign that 1,000%. Yeah. There's no need, and we're going on a little bit of a tangent here, but there's no need to reinvent the wheel. If you want to help, then just give money to organizations that have been doing this work for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about something most pregnant women aren't getting enough of: omega-3 DHA. The recommendation is over 200 milligrams a day, but less than 5% of pregnant women in the U.S. meet that. That's one of the reasons I love Ritual's Essential Prenatal. It has 350 milligrams of vegan DHA, plus other key nutrients like methylated folate and choline to support baby's neural tube development. As an OBGYN, I appreciate that Ritual goes beyond the basics. The formula is science-backed, third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes, and every ingredient is traceable. And the delayed release design, it's gentle on the stomach, something that really matters, especially if there's trouble with nausea during pregnancy. You deserve to know exactly what you're putting into your body, especially when it comes to prenatal multivitamins. And with Ritual's dedication to traceable science and sourcing, you always will. See for yourself with 25% off your first month at ritual.com/Dr. Nicole. Start Ritual or add Essential Prenatal to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/Dr. Nicole for 25% off your first month. Okay, so getting back to the rest of your pregnancy, was everything else otherwise okay?
Yeah, honestly, just the nausea. My body felt fantastic. I was in pretty good shape going into it. I didn't really keep up much exercise besides walking just because of my horrific nausea, but my body felt really good. I say my bones and stuff felt really good, but the nausea was just really debilitating, horrible. Like, my husband would have to line up trays of crackers and hope I could eat them. So that was just really, really, really hard. But otherwise, no, we had the amnio. We felt a lot of relief after that. And we're just looking towards a birth.
Nice. So not vomiting, just nausea.
Some vomiting, definitely.
Okay.
I do travel for work, and COVID was kind of opening up back then. And I had been vaccinated. So the depressurization of airplanes and stuff like that would really bother me. And just sometimes I would just projectile. So a little bit of both, but not enough vomiting to where I wasn't getting, that I was like not getting fluids or stuff like that, but just like heavy nausea constantly.
Gotcha. So what did you do to prepare for your birth?
So I've been kind of a birth person for a while. I actually wasn't sure if I wanted kids. I was just interested in it as like something that only women could do. So I've been a volunteer doula in the past in Austin with gals giving Austin labor support. Listened to a ton of Birth Hour, a ton of this podcast, all podcasts. So I was kind of open-minded. That said, I was just really open-minded about it. As we got closer, a little bit about my past is, so I have a history of recurrent UTIs.
Okay.
Until about 2.5, 3 years ago when I found, I hate to say that this is like a product that helped me, but it is.
Right.
I found this product, Cora, that their system works for me. And I'm happy to share more again if anybody wants to talk about that.
What is it called?
It's called Uqora, I think is how you pronounce it. Uqora.
Okay.
It's a system. It's basically like some supplements, and then I think what helps most for me is this drink that you can drink like after sex or after exercise or whenever you get dehydrated, and it basically just shoves D-mannose and a diuretic through your system. And that really has been great for me. Like that's what I needed. So I've actually like tapered down from the system a little bit now with some of the supplements now that I'm feeling really recovered. But that was about 2.5, 3 years ago that I started to get better from that. And so I am just incredibly protective of my urethra, my perineum, my vagina. Like I'm very attached to my sex life, and I just really became scared of any damage.
Okay.
And so I had, I was kind of open to C-section and kind of interested in it just because that was the part. And so I came to my doctors and said this, and she's like, statistically you're better off with the vaginal birth. But I want to like talk about this trauma and like, understand that it's affecting you and things like that. And she's like, we know you only want one child. So she had a good conversation with me about it. And what we kind of agreed upon is that I would try vaginal. If everything's going perfect, we'll just keep them rolling. And then if there's any stalling or anything like that, I ever decide I want a C-section, we can just do that. So I felt really prepared and kind of for all the options. We really didn't, we felt just that we wanted to trust our doctors. Like they had been really supportive with the evidence-based stuff. Like this hospital does skin to skin automatically, C-section or otherwise. Breastfeeding's really encouraged. Like, so I felt like I just felt really supported, and I felt like it was a good mix of like science and, more midwife, doula, that kind of based. I felt great in the hands of women. So we just kind of went open-minded.
I love that, which is how it should be, that you should feel supported and prepared for all of the options based on evidence. So you don't felt like, I know some OBGYNs like push back against the thought of an elective C-section, but you don't feel like you encountered that.
No, and I feel like it's because the way my OB and I had been talking our whole pregnancy, like she knows I respond to like, what are the latest studies? What are you seeing in your work? So she kind of responded with a mix of that and was like, statistically, you're less likely to bleed out and all these things. With a vaginal, you're likely to recover faster, all these things. She's like, that said, I think you're a really good C-section candidate. And if you want that, I want to respect it. So she's like, so it was kind of like a bit of a plan we came up with together.
Gotcha. So what are some things otherwise that you wanted for your birth?
Again, I just wanted to see women run. I wanted my partner to feel really good and included, and he's like an incredible partner. So, he did. That was just really important. I wanted him to feel calm. And I just really wanted to feel like I was so ready to not be pregnant. Like that was my biggest, like, I just was not my best self when I was at nauseous. Like, I was not my best self when I was staring down this life-changing medical event for 9 months, like we were just ready to rip the Band-Aid off and see, what birth and parenthood and all that were like.
Gotcha.
So we were just tired of the anticipation. So really, we were just like, we just wanted to not be pregnant. Yes. I know I didn't want to feel violated, again, like my, the basics that you ask for from birth, that I just kind of took advantage from having these great OBs, asking before you do something to me or touch me or, explaining it, things like that.
Gotcha. I love it. So, my brain, I was going to ask, did you have a doula? Because you were a volunteer doula. What were your thoughts on having a doula?
So we were kind of looking at the budget of this whole thing. And we knew that since we didn't have a specific birth plan / might be getting a C-section / I know a lot about birth, my husband knows a lot, that we felt like we would be better served in our journey at getting a postpartum doula, and then also financing 6 weeks of him being off work.
That is smart.
So because we just were kind of like, if we're looking down a little bit of possibly a more medical birth anyways, and I love, like, obviously I was a volunteer doula, like I love supporting women in natural birth if that's what they want, like, I was a little bit less like that, and I felt really good with my doctors. We toured the hospital. It's only women nurses. Like, there were literally not going to be any men there. and in the building or in the wing, and except for fathers, obviously, but sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, you were just saying that's why you felt like you probably didn't need a doula during
but
your
I was really worried about after. I felt like there was so much information to know about babies that we had, that like I couldn't focus on because we were too sick, or just like I was too sick, or just like hanging on, and so I felt like I wanted someone that could say like, oh, this is going right or this is going wrong, who just knew. I was worried about my recovery, especially if I was thinking about having a C-section. We just had a postpartum doula, and then him being off for 6 weeks.
Yep, that's really smart, and that you thought about that to plan that in advance. So let's get to what your labor and birth was like. What happened with your labor and birth?
Sure. So our plan was to induce at 39 weeks. Again, that was something that like I wanted. Like, I was thrilled that the Arrive study a little bit backed me up and I could use it, but like I was just feeling so horrific and so anxious about the birth and so done. And I was like, and he was already a very large baby. And I know that like, that's not an induction reason. The large babies are vaginally birth all the time, it's like, this is just what worked for me. And so we induced, and like our plan was to try, Cervidil and try Pitocin over time, and see if it worked, and then if not, do a C-section. So we did a trial of labor for 24 hours, and nothing happened. I was on the highest doses of Pitocin, and I was sitting there calmly. I had no contractions, nothing like that.
Okay.
And then we did a C-section.
Okay. So you were like, 24 hours, I'll give it. If we're not seeing anything, then you were fine with the C-section.
Yeah, pretty much. And he had no heart rate variations. He was just chilling in there, which now that I know him, like, of course that's what he was doing.
Isn't it funny how the inside, like how they are during your pregnancy is how they are in so many ways when they're born.
It's so crazy. Yeah. So we just did 24 hours, and like we were getting tired, and I knew I wanted to like be awake, and I wanted to be able to feed and do things like that when he was born. So we were kind of getting to the point where we were like, okay, we've got like probably 6 to 7, 8 hours left before we like physically are going to need to sleep. So like, let's get the show on the road. And and then it was actually not my OB because she had been up all night with me. Sure. It was, her partner who I'd already met and was happy to have do my surgery. And we just kind of went in and did it. And
now, were you feeling anything after this? Like, if after the 24 hours, like things had started, do you feel like you would have kept going, or had like nothing started?
Nothing had started, and I felt like I would have kept going. And I sort of was like, should we go home? And like, is this a sign that he's not ready? But I just, again, like I was so nauseated. And like, I was also having I had a lot of trouble breathing at the end, because I guess I ran out of space. And like, I felt like I couldn't take a full breath, and I was just really done. So I was kind of like, I think this is a sign. And I think probably what influenced is a good friend of mine had a vaginal birth 3 months earlier and which I know statistically is low, but like a really bad recovery. And then given my, my UTI concerns and all that, I was just like, I felt like maybe it was kind of a sign to just go for it. But I think that was the goal. If things had started going, I definitely would have like stuck with it. I was ready to get an epidural, or anything like that as needed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So how was the C-section for you?
I was very nervous. I'm kind of a medical nervous person anyways. But there was this nurse, named Shelby, who was just like a freaking angel. She was pregnant too, but she just was like, no, we're going to do great. This is routine. Told me the things I needed to hear. And then and she like held me during my spinal block, which is just a crazy feeling. And then the anesthesiologist was also really good. Actually, that was a man. Oh my gosh. And I hadn't thought about that. He didn't seem like, he didn't seem like a man. He seemed like a man, but I didn't even think about that. Wow. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And so, he was just really great and explained things. And I think he'd been working with that team for a really long time.
Okay.
Actually, there was a nurse there who he'd done her anesthesia for her C-section and said the nurses like pick him. So he just knew, I guess, a feminine vibe that I wanted. And so he was really good. And then honestly, as soon as they got, I guess I should tell more of the story. Yeah. So I just, she came in and she was like, okay, we're going to get started. And soon later, she
here's a baby.
You hear it. Yeah. She was like, okay, you're going to feel some tugging. And I was like, okay. And then she just pulled him up and held him over the sheet, and he was just looking at me, and I actually just started screaming.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I just was like, oh my God. And then they had him on my chest like right away. And he was crying and screaming. He was huge, and he was just.
How much did he weigh?
Well, he only weighed 7 pounds. I don't know why that was my memory, is that he was huge, but I think I was just shocked that was inside of me.
Right.
Yeah, 7 pounds, 8 ounces. And then they brought him over, and they just, I remember them sewing me up. And I remember, I think I felt really good immediately. Like I didn't feel nauseous. Anymore.
Right.
I guess it's when they got the placenta out. I'm not sure.
Yep.
I felt like I could breathe, which is crazy because I was numb from the chest down, but I finally felt like I could breathe a little bit. I actually was like, okay, I'll carry the baby out of the OR, is what I told them I was going to do, and they were like, well, no, you're not going to do that.
They're like, you just had surgery, so maybe not, but thanks for offering.
No, I felt great, and my husband was there, and he was looking at the baby and was like, this is so cool, and like my heart rate was getting really, getting excitable, and he was like, I really want you to try to control, the anesthesiologist was like, I really want you to try to control your heart rate with your breathing right now. Because he's like, I don't think I need to give you medicine, but like I think you're just excited.
Gotcha.
And so I was like looking at my husband and the baby and just breathing.
Aww.
Yeah, and so it was really good. And so we went to recovery, and again, like Shelby, or you probably have to edit that out, but my nurse.
Oh no, you can say. You can
okay.
Say yeah.
Shelby was amazing. I was in recovery, and right away they put him, he was put on me when we got into the recovery room, and he crawled up me, did the breast crawl, latched right on, and started drinking colostrum. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's hard because a C-section feels weird because, having had 2 myself, something is happening down there, but you can't feel it. It's sort of weird. So I understand that weird feeling of what you mean. And then also that joy of seeing your baby is really, really exciting. So it's great that they showed you the baby and you had skin to skin and all of those great things.
Yeah. And I just feel like after the pregnancy of like the genetic scare and then me just being so sick, it almost felt like there had to be something wrong in some ways. Like, and even though we'd had an amnio, so we knew, like, my scientific brain knew, but I was just for him to come and like be great and need nothing and know exactly what to do was just like pretty awesome.
Right. Love it. And what was your recovery like from the C-section?
Yeah, so we stayed in the hospital for 24 hours. I actually requested to go home early.
Whoa, you went home after 24 hours?
We did, and we...
After a C-section?
After C-section, and my recovery was incredible, and I don't want to I didn't do anything special, I don't think. I mean, I can share what worked for me, but
right.
I was ordering food right away as soon as we got into postpartum room,
right.
Because I was just starving, and I was hungry for the first time. So ate a lot of food, and I was badgering them to get up and walk around because I just felt like I wanted to, and they were like, come on, they were like, well, you need to wait till the catheter's out, and I understand what they're doing, but I was just kind of like, I feel really good, I want to get up, I want to take a shower, right. And so I was up and walking around, and then I was just like, is it possible? And then my doctor, I guess, said, so we were home 30 hours after he was born, so yeah, not quite 20. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I was doing something because I left post-op day 2, 2 days afterwards, early in the morning. I was like, I'm out of here. I'm done with this hospital business.
Yes.
Let me out. So I even had staples, and I was like, give me a staple removal and I'll teach my husband how to take my staples out. So I understand wanting to get out of the hospital. Yeah. But wow, 30 hours is pretty fast. Did you feel okay when you came home?
I felt fantastic. And, at the hospital, they gave me a stomach binder, which I thought really helped.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
We pushed the baby around in the cart, in a lot in the hospital, and it was great. Something I want to mention, I guess, about our hospital stay is we were kind of knew we were going to combo feed the whole time. As you know, that was our plan going forward. We knew the benefits of breastfeeding. We knew the benefits of colostrum and wanted Holden, our baby, to have that. Right. But we also just knew that we wanted to set up a really pleasant time with our baby. And my husband being off work and having saved money for him to be able to do that. And so we just felt like formula would help us, and it really, really did. Okay. It was kind of felt like the best of both worlds. I couldn't find a lot of information on it, but at the hospital they were actually really supportive of that too, despite me being a little nervous about that because it's a baby-friendly hospital, which can mean a little bit of intensity about breastfeeding. But here it really just meant support if you wanted it. And so he had donor milk in the hospital, which my husband would feed him when I was sleeping or bathing or whatever, and then the rest of the time he breastfed.
Okay. They gave you donor milk in the hospital?
They did. I signed off on it because we knew we were educated about it and preferred the donor milk. But they would have offered formula too if we wanted it. We actually were looking for donor milk for when we leave the hospital to also support, but that was hard, and so we just combo fed with formula.
That is so unusual that they give donor milk to full-term babies. It's often reserved for preemies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. They had told us in our newborn class, actually, at that hospital, that they would prefer to give donor milk because of their baby-friendly hospital. But if we needed formula, they could do that.
Okay. So you felt like your pain was well controlled from the surgery and things like that?
I did. They asked me, I guess after 12 or 14, if I wanted another re-up, and I was starting to get pretty painful if I wanted the narcotics, basically. I don't even know what they were. I said, yeah, I'll take one more. And then I think when we got home, I was on the Tylenol / codeine pills for I think it took 3 or 4 doses, so 3 days, and then I stayed on the prescription Advil for maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
Maybe a week and a half, something like that, but it was pretty well controlled. I mean, I remember it burning and things like that, but I was more just concerned with being so excited to eat and see the baby and feel good. And just also kind of feeling a little bit grossed out by the bleeding. So I felt almost like the pain was just secondary to those kind of things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So when did your postpartum doula come?
So she came within 24 hours after we got home. And then she came a few more times over the next week. But then we sort of said, we're doing fine. My husband's at home and he's great. He did all the overnights for 6 weeks. He's a fantastic partner. I was recovering well. I was sleeping 8 hours a night. So we actually banked some of her time for when he went back to work. And then had the rest of her time come after 6 weeks. Because we were honestly, it was so crazy. I don't know, they say that you'll know what to do. I know that sounds insane. When people would say that to me, I was pregnant, I would get so mad. I'm like what the no. But no, you just do. And it was almost and I felt like I was really concerned during pregnancy about not having enough help after. And so I actually was the opposite. I wanted everyone to leave, except for my husband and I, we were fine.
Right.
So that is a possibility, for that to happen. But no, my doula was great. She was like, yeah, y'all are doing just fine. I'll come back when he's 8 to 10 weeks and maybe you're wanting to run out and get a coffee or, something like that. And I can sit with them. And so it worked out fine.
Awesome. And were you pumping or breastfeeding?
No, so I never pumped, and that was kind of what we didn't want to deal with doing combo feeding. So no, we never really pumped. I would use a Haka and stuff.
Okay.
And things like that. But I was always just I settled into kind of 2 feeds a day at the breast, and then the rest we would do formula.
Okay. All right. And then when did you go back to work?
So I am fortunate for America. I had 13 weeks of leave. I worked
nice.
I worked for a majority woman company, a pretty progressive company. Again, probably why I wanted a woman-only OB team is my experience working mostly with women is fantastic. So I had 13 weeks, and then I went back, which is what I'm still doing. He's about to turn 8 months, but working from home and doing childcare with the support of my mom. So I have my mom in town, and she does 2 weeks on, usually, of full-time care, and so I try to shove any of my work, travel, important meetings, anything in those 2 weeks, and then anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks off where I do work from home and childcare. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's two very different environments.
So how do you feel about it? Oh, I guess I should ask, did you have any issues with postpartum depression or anything like that?
I felt fantastic postpartum. Those hormones are the best drug there is. I felt great. I was so thrilled to not be pregnant. I was so thrilled that he was doing well. I was so thrilled my husband was bonding and being such a great partner. It was great. But I went to a pelvic floor physical therapist twice postpartum, and I think it was really integral to my healing. So I didn't really actually have any damage in my, like I said, my vagina and perineum, anything like that.
Right.
But she did a lot of scar massage type stuff with me and taught me how to do that, which I think has been really great. And so going to her and kind of doing that postpartum was great. And then also my OB just wanted to let my pelvic floor physical therapist sign off on my exercise, because she was like, that's not my realm. I can sign off on you medically, but body-wise, I'd rather your PT. And so I went to her, and then I did the Get Mom Strong program, which it starts with just gentle breathing. That is the first set of exercises, belly breathing. It was a really gradual and really supportive, kind of slow kind of climb back into exercise that I felt was great and super approachable. They're just small little things you can do with the baby there or whatever. Nice.
So how do you feel about your birth and postpartum experience?
Yeah, I feel I'm more traumatized by pregnancy. To be honest, I feel really great about it. I feel supported. I think, I live in Texas. It's not where you think about there being the best care, but I really feel these women are down here doing good work because they know they're the only ones that'll do it that way. And and that's something I think about a lot as I'm like, we're sitting here, we're like, why are we leaving Texas?
Right.
We're we gotta get out of here. And so it was a really good lesson to me, and I think really integral in my journey as a person to work with them. I feel really great. I feel a lot of anger still around just the treatment of women in this country, and even going back at 13 weeks felt horrific. I was crying, telling my husband, let's just drive away. And he's like, right. What are you talking about?
Right.
So that was really hard.
But overall you feel...
Yeah, I feel good. I feel good. I feel probably, yeah, I felt good. I felt like, especially in my, I'm in a somewhat quote unquote, I run with some crunchier type white folk, you know the vibe. I feel I was sort of proud of myself that I was that I don't know that's the best answer for me. I think maybe a medical birth is for me, and I felt kind of proud of myself for doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, doing it in a way that felt good for you.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So I felt good about it.
I love it. And your point about your doctors, that's one of the things that we talk about in our OBGYN circles and communities is that some of us need to stay in places so that we can be a resource when folks don't have access to things. So that's just a reminder.
Yeah, it is.
Sure about that.
And I felt very good that, if it was clear that I had the resources to travel, but if I hadn't, I felt very good that they would have been able to connect me with them, or somehow outside of their jobs, outside of what they can legally do, or that's kind of what I felt. And I understand they're putting, in a lot of ways you can put yourself on the line by doing that.
100%.
And that's, I don't know, it was just really inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. So what is the one piece of advice or one thing you would tell other women as they get ready for their birth?
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of education recently about how birth plans can be a little limiting in setting up for disappointment. So that's what I would say, just be really flexible. And I cringe when I hear people that say they don't trust their provider. I'm like, well, then get a new one. Right. Even if they're 36 weeks or 37 weeks, please. That's really just what I would. That's my advice is there's no reason you can't jump around. I was fully prepared to jump around if I didn't like the second one I tried, so I would just say, make sure you feel good about it, whether that is, a home birth with a midwife or a C-section with a surgeon, the whole realm.
Yep. I love it. So where can women connect with you? You can say nowhere. It's totally optional.
I put my Instagram on there.
Oh, okay. So we'll put that in the show notes.
That's probably where I check messages the most. And I'm happy to share, about anything. I know a lot of people struggle with UTI. So if anyone wants to talk about that, and how I changed, literally cured that, it's kind of incredible. I didn't think that would happen for me. I'm happy to talk about that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the podcast. It was such great information that I know folks are going to find useful.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, wasn't that a great birth story episode? I just love how confident Meghan was in her choices and the things that she did for her birth, and how everything turned out great for her in the end. Now, after every episode, when I have a guest on, I do something called Dr. Nicole's Notes, where I talk about my top takeaways from the episode. And before I get into Dr. Nicole's Notes, let me tell you a quick word about this week's podcast episode sponsor, Ellement. I chatted with the founder before we decided that she wanted to sponsor the podcast. And let me tell you, she's so really, really passionate and committed and dedicated to making a prenatal supplement that is really, really top notch. This prenatal supplement that Ellement provides is tailored for each person. Whether you have certain dietary preferences, whether you have a high-risk pregnancy, if you have nutritional deficiencies like low iron or vitamin D, your supplement can be adjusted to account for that. And it's adjusted every 30 days. Every 30 days, they can adjust your prenatal protocol to make sure that it's still the best fit for you wherever you are in your journey. And not to mention, Ellement has exceptional ingredient quality, no fillers, no additives. The packaging is eco-friendly too. So head to helloelement.com. That's Ellement with 2 L's. Join their waitlist today. Okay, so let's get into Dr. Nicole's notes from my conversation with Meghan. Number one, I want to circle back to the issue of genetic testing implications with Roe v. Wade being overturned and how that is going to, or how that is restricting abortion access in so many states. And I've said this before and I'll say this again, abortion should be available. It is not something that should be decided by the government. I don't believe, and this may surprise some folks, that abortion should be available at any point in pregnancy. Like nobody should be able to abort a 36-week fetus, but I certainly believe that abortion should be available up until viability, when the baby can survive outside of mom. And that's, 24 weeks ish. And then also for any lethal conditions that we know may arise during pregnancy if it's later beyond 24 weeks. I talk more about abortion in episode 134 of the podcast. That episode came out obviously before Roe v. Wade is overturned, but I pride myself on taking what I believe is a balanced approach to abortion access, and one that I believe most folks agree with. So if you want to learn more about that, then head to episode 134 of the podcast. Okay. Dr. Nicole's notes number 2 is, I really love how Meghan took a thoughtful approach to the resources that she had when she was thinking about getting a doula. And she ultimately decided that, given the limitations on money and things like that, that a postpartum doula was going to work best for her and her family. And that is so, so important. Everyone needs to take their own individual approach and think about what may work best for them. So for example, if you know your husband, you think your husband's going to be a rock star and supporting you in the labor room, maybe you do want a postpartum doula. If you have a sister who could support you or something like that, maybe you want to have a postpartum doula. On the flip side, if you know your husband is going to be a hot mess express and not going to be able to really give you the things that you need, just, honest, thoughtful introspection, I should say, then maybe you want to decide that you do have a doula during your labor and birth. And that also goes for things like, what things you buy. Can you borrow some things from people? Certainly great to reuse some things during pregnancy. For example, breast pumps can be reused. You just need to change out all of the equipment and sterilize it. So just think about your resources and take a thoughtful approach to your resources and using the things that are around you so you can be most efficient with what you have. All right. And the third thing I want to talk about is labor induction. A couple things about labor induction. There's a lot of sometimes negative talk about labor induction, but I want to be clear that if you want to be induced 39 weeks or later, it's totally fine to be induced if that's what you want to do. Okay. It's a personal choice. As long as you know the risk, the benefits, the things that are involved, it is okay to be induced if that's something that you want to do. There's no shame or anything about being induced. So it's okay to be induced. You just need to go into it informed. Now, you should not be pushed for induction. You shouldn't have to get an induction at 39 weeks. Some doctors are doing that, which is inappropriate. But if you want to be induced, it's fine. Be induced. The other thing is that a lot of people don't realize is if the induction is not progressing, as long as your water isn't broken and your baby looks okay on the monitor, looks healthy on the monitor, you can actually stop an induction. You don't have to keep going if it's an elective induction, meaning it's an induction that's being done for not medical reasons. It's just because you're choosing to be induced. If after 24 or 48 hours and nothing much is happening, and again, baby looks good, your water's not broken, you can stop an induction and you can come back in a few days and try again. So that's something that's always available as well. Now, if you want to know more about labor induction, listen to episode 70 of the podcast. That's drnicolerankins.com/episode 70, episodes spelled out and then 70. And I take a much deeper dive with labor induction inside the birth preparation course, my online childbirth education class that gets you calm, confident, and empowered for your birth. You can check out all the details of the birth preparation course and all the greatness that it offers at drnicolerankins.com/enroll. All right. So there you have it. Do me a solid, y'all. Please share this podcast with a friend. Sharing is caring, and it helps me reach and fulfill my purpose of serving as many pregnant folks as possible. So share this podcast with a friend. Also subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to me right now, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. From time to time, I do shout outs from those reviews, and I just love to hear what you think about the show. Also, to connect with me after the show, come follow me on the gram. I'm on Instagram at Dr. Nicole Rankins No, sorry. Let me try that again. I'm on Instagram at instagram.com/Dr. Nicole Rankins. I'm Dr. Nicole Rankins everywhere, actually, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But come join me on Instagram where I share more information and we can connect there outside of the podcast. So that is it for this episode. Do come on back next week and remember that you deserve a beautiful pregnancy and birth.